Anna Wintour, hi, my name's Emily. I want to write for you.
They have this fear that like, but what if they say no? And I, as an individual, have always had the approach like, great, that I'm exactly where I was before I wrote Anna Winter, and I still don't have a spread in Vogue. But I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that because you did put yourself out there in a lot of different ways, reaching out to these publications and then writing pieces that your friends, your family, your frenemies were all going to read and then have their own judgments and opinions about. So, how has that journey been for you as you've been kind of navigating, finding the right path for you, but also likely coming up against a lot of what some people would label as failure or setbacks kind of along the way?
More than half the time, you're not even getting rejected. You're getting ignored. You don't
True.
even get a response. Like, I am thrilled when someone writes me back and says no, because I'm like, oh, you read the email and you're giving me the courtesy of responding to my email, because so often we're not
So
even getting a
true.
response. And I mean, I still to this day have relationships with editors, and now that I'm in TV producers that I have never worked with, but I continue to send them ideas and they continue to give me feedback. And I know at some point we're going to work together and it's going to be the most magical collaboration ever because we have this great relationship just through years of that rejection. So it's really about framing it. How can every single step you take help you? So you send out 10 cold pitches, you are learning to be a better writer. You're learning to concisely share your ideas. You're learning the right and wrong way to approach people. I mean, everything is information to take and make yourself better.
Welcome back to this episode of Secrets of the Career Game. So many people are trying to navigate a corporate world that is laden with secrets, cleverly hidden, and unspoken rules to a game that most employees don't even know that they're playing. On this podcast, we try to give you a peek behind the curtains and some tips and tricks to ultimately make you successful in your career and help you progress a little bit faster. Hello, my lovelies. We have a very special guest today on today's episode. We are going to be talking about the career journey of becoming a multi-platform journalist, a TV personality, a trend expert, a social media correspondent, basically famous with Miss Emily Foley. It's going to be a wonderful episode. So, Emily, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast with us.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really excited to chat all the things with you.
So why don't you give listeners a little bit, and by little bit, I mean a lot of bit, intro into your background and kind of your journey of where you started and how you ended up where you are today.
Sure. Well, I can say definitively that as a child, as a senior in high school looking at college, and as a college student, I did not dream of where I am today. The whole thing is just really a combination of hard work and being in the right place and saying yes and sort of following your passions, because this was not what I've dreamed of my whole life, because this didn't even exist when I was a kid. But so I graduated from high school a year early. So my parents said, you have to live at home. You have to go to a local college. I lived in a small town in Georgia. There was not a lot of options. So I went to a junior college and literally like picked a major out of the book, just randomly picked one that had the least amount of math. And that was political science. And that was my major. Then while I was there, I did a lot of theater, a lot of performance-based stuff, show choir, and I was always really involved in choir as a young kid. So I did lots of things on stage there. Transferred to a major university to finish my degree. And because I had an associate's degree in political science, it made sense to then do public and political communication. So suddenly I was in the communication field. I got a minor in public relations again. All of this is so fortunate for me because it just sort of made sense. I didn't know where I wanted to go, but it was during those final 2 years of college that I really honed in on politics. I loved politics. I decided I wanted to be a speechwriter. I took tons of speech classes. So I was not only writing, I wrote for the school newspaper. I was writing these speeches. I was learning to deliver these talking points in very concise snippets. I had 2 minutes to present a topic. I had 3 minutes to present a topic, and was very involved in politics throughout those 2 years. The May that I was graduating from college, realized that I hated politics. I felt like everybody on both sides were terrible, power hungry people. It was not who I wanted to be. And I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. So I graduated from college with all of these clips from the school newspaper and decided I've always been a pretty strong writer. Writing's good. But at that point, because I was very newspaper heavy, I thought I had to be a sports writer. I had to be an op-ed writer. Like I had to choose a niche. And I really didn't want to because I had so many interests. So I thought, well, how can I do this without having to choose one thing? So I took a job as a nanny. I thought, okay, I have rent to pay. I've got to pay my bills. What can I do so I can build a career but still pay my bills? So I found a family that had one kid. He was still a baby, so he napped. And literally, I watched him while he was awake. And while he was napping, I started trying to build a career for myself and contacted every magazine and newspaper. Again, this was a long time ago, so there were still lots of print publications in circulation. Contacted every single one in the city of Atlanta and was like, all I've got is college newspaper clips, but I want to write for you. Found the first one, then the second one, and then that is how I started my career freelancing and started meeting people in the community, going to every single event, saying yes to every single assignment that was given to me, and just pitching. I don't know why, but for some reason, cold pitching has always been something I've been comfortable with. I mean, I was pitching Vogue my first month writing. Like, I had no business writing Vogue, writing for Vogue. I had no business thinking I could write for Vogue, but I was like, Anna Wintour, hi, my name's Emily. I want to write for you. So, really, through all that, just figuring it out as I went, meeting people, getting assignments, making mistakes, learning from those mistakes. I met a great mentor during that time who helped me, introduced me to other people in the industry in Atlanta, and just started building up from there. For a period, I was actually a full-time editor at a modern luxury publication. I decided to try that out, see how I liked full time. I was a assistant editor and then a contributing editor, and I really touched everything. I mean, I wrote about real estate, I wrote about philanthropic events, I wrote about fun stuff like fashion, I did celebrity cover stories, but really, again, a lot of my career has just been saying yes and taking the assignments. And that is how I got to the point of being a freelance writer.
I love your story. And I was so with you where I was like, oh, this is resonating with me so much. And then you said you picked poli sci because there was no math. And I was like, oh, I studied math. So like that I disconnected there. No, but I love your story because the big two things that I'm hearing from you that I love and I teach my clients all the time is one, you have to know what you're passionate about and what you like. And I think so often as adults, we lose sight of what we're passionate about and what we like. And we kind of become like, well, this makes the most money. Or my mom said that being an ankle doctor is my dream. And so now it's my dream, right? And we lose sight of this. And I think when you aren't following your passions, you don't stumble upon the opportunities that you have, right? I always say I'm not a title coach. I'm not going to teach you to be a CEO, but I will teach you what you like doing and how to follow that path. So I love that you really fell into that groove so naturally, but I also love that you weren't afraid of failure because I think this is something, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, is when you are writing Anna Wintour and you've been a freelance writer for all of 4 days and you're like, I'm ready. Where's my Vogue spread? This is my moment. There are so many people that I see they have this fear that like, but what if they say no? And I, as an individual, have always had the approach like, great, that I'm exactly where I was before I wrote Anna Wintour, and I still don't have a spread in Vogue. But I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that because you did put yourself out there in a lot of different ways, reaching out to these publications and then writing pieces that your friends, your family, your frenemies were all going to read and then have their own judgments and opinions about. So how has that journey been for you as you've been kind of navigating, finding the right path for you, but also likely coming up against a lot of what some people would label as failure or setbacks kind of along the way? Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If you're finding the information on this podcast helpful and you're looking to take control of your career and start to elevate yourself to the next level, go ahead and check out our course. Go to bit.ly/career coach course to get signed up today and to start taking your career to the next level and navigate the secrets of the career game.
Yeah, I think some of that is honestly just personality type. And I could like Psych 101 myself for you. I'm a Taurus, so I'm stubborn as hell. I'm a little sister, so I'm stubborn as hell. Like please tell me no, because when you tell me no, I am going to do it better than anyone has ever done it ever. Like I am just determined. I am so determined. And so that's just innate in me. So the rejection emails, and what's really interesting about cold pitching in general, that I think so many people who do get in their heads about it and who do fear rejection, it's not even more than half the time, you're not even getting rejected. You're getting ignored. You don't even get a response. Like, I am thrilled when someone writes me back and says no, because I'm like, oh, you read the email and you're giving me the courtesy of responding to my email, because so often we're not
So
even getting a
true.
response. And I mean, I still to this day have relationships with editors, and now that I'm in TV producers that I have never worked with, but I continue to send them ideas and they continue to give me feedback. And I know at some point we're going to work together and it's going to be the most magical collaboration ever, because we have this great relationship just through years of that rejection. So it's really about framing it. How can every single step you take help you? So you send out 10 cold pitches, you are learning to be a better writer. You're learning to concisely share your ideas. You're learning the right and wrong way to approach people. I mean, everything is information to take and make yourself better. Okay, I sent out 3 emails with this subject line that got no response, but the 2 emails I sent with the subject line formatted a little differently, I did get a response. So whatever that is, that's catching people's eye. I just look at every single situation as how can I get better and how can this help me go farther and achieve my goals. And a lot of that, I think, is just my natural tenacity and stubbornness.
So it's funny because one of the things that I often talk about, and I've talked about on the pod before, is for me, all failure is information gathering. And that's essentially what you're getting at, right?
Yes.
Is I learned this subject line worked better. And I learned that this person didn't want to work with me on this idea, but they gave me some great feedback. So now I have a connection. And that approach, now I'm wondering, like, is this a Taurus thing? Like every Taurus just wakes up in the morning and is like, come at me. I'm ready. I don't
Maybe so.
know. Um, and my son is a Taurus and he's the same way. No fear whatsoever of any type of failure.
Okay.
So I love to hear this about you because I do think a lot of people can get stuck in a career they dislike, a relationship they dislike, in a life they dislike out of this fear of like, well, what if I put myself out there and they say no? And I love this spin of like, yeah, but it's going to make you better. And it's going to help you learn and it's going to help you get to that next step. So obviously you're in I'm going to use the word cutthroat, not quite as cutthroat as politics, maybe, but you're in a like somewhat cutthroat type of space. What does it take to really be successful when you are a freelance writer and you're talking about fashion and beauty and lifestyle topics and real estate and all these different things that you've done? Aside from being willing to face that fear of rejection and failure, like what else do you kind of have to make it in an industry that's very competitive like that?
I think it's two things. And I think part of it is what does it take to make it? And part of it is the cutthroat piece. So the first part of that is just hard work. When I tell you, I do not have, I did not graduate from Harvard. I did not have connections. I mean, I did not, for whatever reason, growing up, I thought of writers as novelists. If you wrote books. It never even occurred to me that someone was writing in Cosmopolitan and Glamour and all of these magazines that then became my dream to write for. And then I achieved those dreams. I think I just completely lost my train of thought. Hard work. I'm just a hard worker. And that's in all of my life. I mean, if it's my day to clean the house, like I am going to clean this house better than anybody has ever cleaned a house in their life. Like I'm just a hard worker. I am fulfilled by working hard and achieving things and checking things off a list. So again, I think that there's people who thrive in a freelance environment and there's people who don't. There's people who need to go into an office every single day and need to be given a list of tasks and need to clock in and clock out. And that's fine. It's just different personality types. But I thrive as a freelancer because I'm self-motivated and I am a hard worker. So I attribute my success to just being a harder worker than anyone else out there. Because if somebody's saying no, I'm going to say yes. And yes, I have done that to the detriment of my health. I will even say I've done that to the detriment of my family. Like, you need me to do something on Christmas Day? Okay, well, we can't do it at 9 a.m. because we're in the middle of presents, but 2 p.m. when they are, playing with their toys and won't notice I'm gone, I'm there for you. Like, I say yes. So it's hard work. It's saying yes to every single thing. I have said this so many times talking to people about my career. You say yes, and then you figure out how to do it. It doesn't matter if you know how. It doesn't matter if you have any idea of how to execute what that thing is. You say yes, and then you figure out how to do it because you are giving yourself the opportunity to learn and get better and have that opportunity and advance your career or that relationship. So that's one piece. hard work and saying yes to everything. And then the other piece of that with the cutthroat part of it is when I first started in TV, which I guess we haven't even talked about how that
We
happened, but
haven't gotten there yet.
that was very much just a connection thing. I'll share quickly how that happened. So I was at that point, I had honed in on lifestyle writing. I loved fashion and beauty and entertainment. That was what really fueled me. So I didn't want to do things like real estate and politics and sports, things that did not fuel me. So I was really being able to hone in on that stuff that was fun for me because I loved it. And I had a friend who was a publicist. And she had a friend who was a producer at the local CBS affiliate in Atlanta, and they wanted more lifestyle content. And they said, "Do you know anybody that could start coming and doing lifestyle segments for us?" She thought of me and she was like, "You've never done TV, but do you think you could just translate what you're writing on a page and do it on TV?" And I said, "Of course I can." Here,
Sure.
exactly. But here we're coming into, never once occurred to me that I was going to ever have a TV career, but all of those speech classes, all of that learning to convey concise information, all of my theater that I did at my junior college, suddenly all of those skills that I didn't even realize were career skills were coming into play. And I literally turned on the Today Show and started watching those lifestyle segments. And I was like, oh, okay, I just need to implement what they're doing and I can do this. So that's how my TV career started. I started going on twice a month it was called Better Mornings Atlanta, and that was the CBS affiliate doing lifestyle segments. My first segment ever, I will never forget it, was my daughter was 2, so it was 12 years ago, and it was about nail trends. And I talked about nail trends. I just got in touch with brands. I had relationships with publicists because of writing. And I said, "Hey, I'm doing TV now. Can you send me this product?" They sent me product, and I did it. And then after I did, I was like, what did I just do? I have no idea what I'm doing. So, and this is how I'm getting back to what I was talking about the second part of this is it being cutthroat. I looked up a woman that I saw on the Today Show, and I found, we had the internet. We did not have social media at that point, but we had the internet. I found her website and I emailed her and I said, "Hey, I'm starting to do this now. Do you have any tips?" And I had specific questions. I don't remember what they are now, but I asked her some specific questions. And she wrote me back and she said, "You are my competition. Why would I help you? Figure it out on your own." And I was so shocked because I was not her competition. This woman's on the Today Show and I'd done one segment in Atlanta, Georgia. You know what I mean? Like, this is not, thank you for calling me your competition, but that's not who I am. And I could not believe that. And I don't think I consciously thought it at that moment, but it was in that moment that I realized I am going to help anyone that ever asks me for help. I am not going to come into life and into my career from this scarcity mindset. I am going to bring people up with me and I am going to realize there is enough work for all of us. And I'm going to be happy for people that are meeting their dreams and their goals, even if they're the same ones that I have, because that
Mm.
doesn't take anything away from me. And from that moment on, I have been the biggest supporter of other women in their journeys, but in my career. One of my best friends now, we always laugh because everybody says, "You're the same person. You're both TV hosts and you both do social media and you both do all of these similar things. Why are you such good friends?" Because we know there's enough work for both of us. And we know that someday, if we're offered the same job, it's going to be perfect timing for one of us, but the other one of us is going to have a sick kid and we're not going to be able to do it. It doesn't take away from me for someone else to be in an amazing place and have successes. And ironically, this woman and I, who does not remember me, and I'm sure has absolutely no idea that she said that to me, we are peers now. And we have all of the same friends and we run in the same circles and I know who she is. And so I keep one eye open at all times because she has shown me her character. But
Mhm.
I am so grateful that she did that because I think another piece of my success has been I have never shut people out. I have never said no to helping other people. And I am the queen of bringing people along beside me. You need this. Well, I can do that for you. But you know what? That's not my best skill set. So let me introduce you to my friend who that is their better skill set. Let me introduce you to my friend who doesn't have kids. And so for what, right now I'm in the trenches with somebody with the flu. This person isn't. So, give them this job. And good things come to people who treat people well. And being a girl's girl, being someone who wants other people to succeed, that whatever you want to call that good energy, that good karma, just being a good person follows you. People know who you are, and it creates a better space around you. Without getting into any sort of, or anything, when you're a good person, other good people gravitate towards you, and good things come to people who treat other people well, period.
I love hearing your story. And it's so funny to me because I see my business very much the same way. There are coaches now, I feel like, are like a dime a dozen. I'm not throwing shade on coaches. I am a coach, but like there's a dime a dozen. There's plenty of it. It's like an influencer. There's like a bajillion, right? And I always think I've had other coaches come to me and say, you put so much content for free on your podcast, on your Instagram. And I'm like, one, there are plenty of people who can't afford my services. And if it helps them, then it's worth it. But two, if the 15-second tip that I give them is enough to fix their problem, then they don't need coaching. And if me bringing on another coach onto my podcast gets them business, then that person likely wasn't the best fit for me for my coaching programs. Like it's not an either or. You can do all the things. You can support other people. You can give out your free advice, and you can still be successful. And so I love hearing your take on that, especially in an industry that I have heard many similar stories from friends of mine who are in the social media business or in the TV and show business who hear similar things, or like I always say, it's a Southern saying, but like would hit you with a bus and like drive right over you and not feel
Yep.
bad about it. Plenty
Yep.
of those, right? So to see you coming at it from a different angle, I think is so refreshing. And I hope that all of those good things come your way as a result.
Thank you.
But one of the things that you touched on about like saying yes, even if you don't know how to do something, imposter syndrome has gotten very popular lately. And I'm not going to throw shade on like, hey, I don't know if I'm ready to do this. I get that. But similar to you, I always feel like I'll say sure, and then I'll figure it out on the back end. And by the time they know I didn't know how to do it, it's already done. Who cares? And so I'd love to hear, like, give me an example. Give me a story of somebody was like, hey, I want you to do this thing. And you were like, awesome. I have no idea how to do this thing. I'm going to figure it out. Because I know you shared the one of like lifestyle. You were like, cool, I'll just figure it out. I'll get some nail stuff. I'll show up on TV. I can make this work. But like, what's another example of somebody tapping you? Like, Emily, I love you. You're fabulous. You're going to do this thing for me. And in your head, you're like, I have no idea how to do this thing. I'm going to show up Monday. What time do you need me there? Like, I'd love to hear your perspective of like what those have been for you along this journey.
Sure. So a big thing that I do now in television is satellite media tours. And that's where you work with a production company and you have particular brands that are on a theme, whether it's Mother's Day gifts or, holiday gifts or holiday looks for less, whatever the theme is, you do that same segment from a studio like 30 times in a row via satellite all across the country. And because that was a type of TV that lifestyle and trend experts did, I wanted to do it. And again, because that's how I operate, is like cold pitch. I started just getting in touch with every single satellite media tour, SMT production studio in the country, introducing myself, showing them. This was several years into my TV career. Like I had TV experience, but not this particular type of TV experience. Introducing myself, showing them my clips, saying, hey, hire me. And then I got hired by one. And I was like, okay, now I have to do this.
Do it.
And so again, it's the first time you go in and there's pieces of that. Yes, I had done one TV segment a million times by then, but there's stamina, there's breath work. A lot of actual on air, investigative journalists, television hosts, TV anchors, they do all sorts of working on their breath and their tones of voice and, working with vocal coaches to help them with all sorts of things. And I had never done any of that. So there were pieces of that, the more specific pieces of that I had no idea how to do. So I got the job and then figured it out. And the huge blessing of saying yes and figuring it out now in 2004, moving on, is there's the internet. There's every bit of information you could ever need. I mean, and even that in social media, I still have, because I'm 41. I didn't grow up in a world with social media. I have learned this as I've gone. So I'll still have someone say, okay, for your deliverables, I need, and they'll throw some initials out there. And I'm like, wonder what those 3 letters mean. And I get in Google and I look up what, and I'm like, oh, that's a medical term. It's not that. And then I look until I figure it out. I'm like, that's what they need me to deliver. So, I mean, it's just, again, there are full grown adult human beings who have degrees in social media management or whatever now. That is not me. I'm just figuring it out. So there are these terms that I don't know. And again, since that's a piece of what I'm doing, it's not my full-time job. something can fall through the cracks. So it's just a daily, when you have so many branches of your career and you're working in so many different ways, sometimes it's just a daily, even if it's not an entire job I don't know how to do. It can be one term, it can be one piece of something that I'm like, sure, I'll do it. And then I have to figure out what they're talking about.
Yeah. I love this just like go getter, show up and figure it out attitude. I'm going to invite you to come visit me after this podcast is over because I feel like we would totally vibe.
I love it.
But I'd love to hear, you've talked a little bit about your journey started with freelance writing, still something you do today, but also then grew into TV, then grew into social media. You've had this very progressive journey. I'd love to hear how you think things have changed in your space. You were kind of starting to hint at it towards the end of that last answer of how journalism and social media are really starting to intersect and how that is shifting. Because I think even you've moved away from politics, but even this most recent election, social media played a way bigger part than we've ever seen historically in lots of different things that took place. So I'd love to hear, how do you feel like these things are kind of coming together, intersecting, where they're starting to be trade-offs, and like where do you think that's heading since you are the trend expert? Where is this going for everybody else?
Yeah, so many. I feel like there are multiple questions there. Social media is no longer, I think social media started as something fun, something, a novelty, an additional interest you could have in your life. Are you going to watch the TV, or are you going to watch this content, which of course that word didn't even exist on social media? Now it is an integral part of every single person's life. And as a journalist, in two ways. First of all, if you are not using social media for your research, then you are not a journalist. It has helped in so many ways. It's the most direct way to the people. It used to be you would have to get out and beat the streets and talk to individual people in one area. Then you either had to drive to a different place, fly to a different place. We have the entire world and all of the people therein at our fingertips now. It makes journalism easier when it comes to research and talking to specific people in anything, whether you're talking about, politics and how is this huge thing going to affect you and your children and your taxes, or small things like, which is big in my world when we're talking about beauty, but what is the latest TikTok trend? What are the 20 somethings doing with their genes versus what the 40 somethings are doing? So research is, you cannot do it without social media now if you want to do it well. The other piece to that is, I think I don't want to disparage anyone, but I think if you want to be in any way current in your career, if you are in media, even if you are a full-time news anchor in some huge market, you have to have a social media presence, because that's where people are going to get information. And so, and this is also twofold. If you are fine just sort of being the talking head and you're like, no, I want them to go to CNN, I want them to go to ABC News, I don't need them to come to me, then that's fine. Then they can go to those handles on social media. But if you want to be a resource to people as a journalist, then your name needs to be attached to giving news. So whatever that may be. I love red carpet, everything about red carpet. I love the fashion. I love the beauty. Pre-COVID, I did tons of entertainment journalism. There's lots of filming in Atlanta. We're the Hollywood of the South now. I did lots of red carpets. A lot of that has shifted since COVID. First of all, there's less access even to sets and things. There's just more closed sets now, period, even all these years later. But also a lot of publications are not sending freelancers as much as they're sending their core team of full-time employees. So I miss that. I miss getting dressed up and being on the red carpet. It is hot. It is hard work. It is the longest days ever, but I loved it and I was energized by it and I miss it. So I cover red carpets for myself on my Instagram and my TikTok. And I have done it in different ways. I've actually just recently shifted it. I was always before did it from a very information heavy way, because I'm a journalist. I am going to label every single person, even if it's not a celebrity, I'm going to tell you their full name. I'm going to tell you what they're in. I'm going to tell you who they're wearing, who their makeup artist was. But even now, people's attentions are shifting and people almost want more of just the funny quips, the cute little commentary. So that's what I'm doing now. And people love that. They just want to hear what I think about the looks. Love it, hate it, but in a funny way. So I am providing that. And then I certainly hope, I will put it out in the universe right now, I certainly hope that at some point, E! News or some other huge agency will need a freelancer and they'll be like, this woman has tons of experience and is still doing this on her own. We'll hire her and then I'll actually go with a microphone again. But if you want to be known as a member of the media or a journalist that covers something, cover it. It's right here. It's easy peasy. You can do it on your own.
Yeah. And I think this is true of anybody who's starting any type of business, right? Especially in journalism and in your space. But even as a coach slash random podcast host, and even as friends of mine who own clothing businesses or whatever, if you don't have a social media presence today, you don't have a business.
You don't.
And that's just the long and short of it, is things are changing so rapidly that when I want to go to dinner now, I go to TikTok and I say best dinner restaurants in Denver or best dinner places to eat in Atlanta when I'm visiting. Like, I'm going to TikTok. I'm not even Googling anymore because I know there's some food blogger in that city who's showing me the plates of food, the types of drinks, where they're eating, how are people dressed, what's the ambiance, is it Instagram worthy? Like, it has become kind of that trend. So I love to hear you say that presence. And I do think we're seeing that shift with a lot of, especially news anchors who were really big, I would say in like the early 2000s. A lot of them, it feels like recently have left major networks to start their own thing, or they're still on a major network and they're building up their support and their brand name with that social media support. So I love to hear you doing that. So I know we're coming up on time and I feel like we could talk for like 4 hours.
I do
So
too.
you are the trend queen, and you can, just looking at you, I'm like the fabulous wallpaper, the beautiful top. You're clearly the trend queen. How do you stay ahead of all these things that are changing, right? Like, especially with TikTok, you mentioned TikTok trends. I feel like I wake up one day and they're like, the newest thing is we all do, what was the clean girl aesthetic? And then they're like, just kidding, Mafia Wife is back.
Yep.
And I'm like, what is happening? How do I do my makeup? So how do you stay ahead of these things? Because I feel like things are changing so rapidly and you've clearly got such a great pulse for it.
Well, and that is a huge part where it's so beneficial that I am a former beauty editor, that I am a journalist. I have been doing this and I have been the one who used to write about it on the pages. I have interviewed every level of dermatologist, hairstylist, cosmetic chemist, fashion designer, boutique owner. I have so much information that I have gleaned from true experts in the industry for so many years. And that's helpful because if you are just coming into it as I just want to be an influencer and I'm a beauty girl, you don't have that level of education and the foundation. And that's what's really helpful is because I can look and say, that is a terrible idea. Do not exfoliate your skin with cat litter, and here's why. Or whatever the thing is, it's fashion is so much more. Fashion really is light and fun, and you can do whatever. And even if you look back in 3 days and think, wow, I look like a clown, who cares? But beauty, there's right and wrong ways to do things. You can destroy your skin and then have to spend years fixing that. And that's why it's important to have the level of education. And that's why I actually love the fact that we are shifting away some from just girls putting on makeup to we're seeing cosmetic chemists get these incredible, huge followings. We're seeing dermatologists. We're seeing all of these true experts. And so the right information is getting out of there. Actual facts is getting out of there because there's a time and a space for like, this is fun. But again, when you're talking about your skin, you do want to take care of it. We're stuck with this forever. So as far as being able to be on the forefront, a lot of it helps that I just have so many years. And that's just one of those things that's fortunate for me that I have so many years experience. But then also I've developed an eye. I know what looks right. I know that layering is always going to be your friend. And I like to push those boundaries. So the way I can stay ahead of all the curves is I'm doing different things. And this, some of it's truly luck. Like some of it is knowledge and some of it is me really trying to be creative and saying, okay, I'm going somewhere. I'm going to be highly photographed. This is going to get out there. I want to make sure I don't look like everyone else. What can I do different about my outfit? Sometimes it's very conscious, but sometimes it's just lucky. I went red. I'm a natural blonde and I went red in February on a whim. I was like, you know what? I want red hair. In this lighting, you can't even see how
I
red it is.
assumed it was natural. It
Thank
looks
you.
so great on you.
So my son is actually a redhead. So I definitely had the coloring for it, but I just wanted to go red. I wanted to change. I've literally been blonde for 41 years. Went into my hairstylist and said, today we're going red. And she almost had a heart attack because that was not what she was expecting. And now it's this huge trend. All of these huge influencers are going red. And that just started a couple of months ago. I didn't know that. I did not know that red was going to be a trend. So sometimes just taking a risk can end up being like, wow, you were a complete trendsetter in this space. But sometimes it's calculated. It's making sure, how do I make sure that I don't look like anyone else in the room? And I do that when I'm shopping too. If I see something and I'm like, oh, that's so cute. And then I realize I've seen 10 other people wear this exact thing. I can't buy that. I need to look for those different pieces because I want to make sure that I always look ahead of the curve and that I have what I need in my wardrobe to be able to do that.
Yeah. I love that. And it's funny because I am not a fashionista as I sit here in my quarter zip, but I am that way with home decor. And it's funny because my husband will laugh. We flipped 8 houses in the last 10 years. So
Oh my
it's a big
gosh.
bit of mine. We're done now. But we're building our dream house right now, so we better be done. But it's funny because my first house, I did this like navy accent wall with all this crown molding. And my husband at the time was like, this is who does this? This looks terrible. You can't do it. I get it done. He's like, actually, it looks pretty great. The next month, the next like L Design magazine that comes out has navy walls with crown molding. And I was like, what were you saying? You want to try that again? But I'm that way where like if I see something in a house for too much, like I'm going to use white kitchens as an example. I love a white kitchen. They've been popular for like 8 years. They're going to be on their way out. They've been here too long. Everybody has them. Now I don't want one because everybody has one, but I had one 12 years ago because I really liked it then.
Yeah.
And so I love hearing you kind of apply this to like your own design because I'm that way with home decor where I'm like, ooh, I should change this up or I should put in a vintage fireplace in my office rather than a new one because I like the aesthetic look of it. So it's so great to hear this. So if people are listening and they're like, all right, Emily has spoken to my soul. I want to pursue a creative vision. I want to, maybe it's a side hustle, maybe it's something that they've been doing, but they want to really lean into that space, whether it's social media, TV, print, they want to do something in that creative industry. What would be one piece of advice you would give them of like, hey, tomorrow, here's what I want you to go do to really kind of like have a platform to jump off into that space?
Just do it. Just do something. I am the queen of put one foot in front of the other. Just take another step. When it comes to social media, it is so true. You just need something out there. Do not wait to have the perfect background. Do not wait until your full face of makeup is done. Do not wait until anything. Do it. Put something out there, whatever it is. If you've decided that you want to be, the Martha Stewart, you want to be the next baking influencer, do it. Bake something and put it on there. Even if it is the most simple, basic recipe ever, it doesn't have to be novel. Do it every day. If you take one step towards your goal, eventually you've walked a mile towards your goal. And it is the most cliche thing in the world, but it's so true that if you're doing something that you love, you never work a day in your life. Do not throw yourself, just like you were saying, if you find yourself at a crossroads and you realize you're in a career that you don't love, stop devoting your life to something you don't love because I am such a hard worker. To my detriment sometimes. But the reason I do it is because I love what I'm doing so much. It's so easy to throw yourself into something that you are passionate about and that you love. And I can wake up every single day and say, first of all, I'm so proud that I've created a career out of thin air. I am so happy that the long hours are about things that I love. I am so thrilled that I'm not in politics. I get to wake up and talk about clothes and makeup and supplements and talk on TV and have all of these social media friends. I love people too. That's the other thing. I love people and connecting with people on social media fuels me. I love doing that. Anybody that wants to ask me questions, find me on social media. I love making friends. So the fact that the hard work, and it is work, this just means it's hard work, but I love it. And if you are going to have to work hard every day for the rest of your life, make sure it is doing something that fuels you.
Yeah. Love that. Mic drop. That was it. Well, if people are listening to this, Emily, and they're like, oh my gosh, I love her. I want to follow along. I want to be part of her journey. Where do you want people to go so that they can connect with you?
Yeah, Instagram is the easiest. It's Emily L Foley on Instagram. I'm also on TikTok, but again, I'm an old lady, so Instagram is the most of my presence. TikTok is definitely my second wing. And again, I do this for other brands and companies as well. So, sometimes I'm busy doing other things versus updating my own. But I mean, every day I'm present on my Instagram, Emily L Foley. Also have a website, emilylfoley.com, where you can see things. But as far as that day to day, get in touch with me and see what's happening. It's all about the gram.
Awesome. Well, we will definitely tag that in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on today's episode. This conversation was amazing. If you're listening along at home and you were like, yes, please give us 5 stars. Leave any questions that you have for myself or Emily below in the comments. Otherwise, Emily will have to have you back. But thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's been so much fun.